Hello, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on this fine but rather cold Saturday morning. This is Amir Ismail, live from Toronto, Canada. I'm a licensed citizenship and immigration advisor authorized by the Government of Canada to represent immigration and citizenship applications. I hope you all are doing fine. It's a pleasure connecting with you all today once again. Today, we will also be joined by our Director of Asia, Mr. Khwaja Naman Ahmed. So it is going to be a very fruitful discussion today. We will be discussing few updates related to Canadian immigration, and we will also respond to your questions toward the end of this quick discussion. But today's topic is something I always wanted to speak about. It is the number one reason for refusal for skilled workers application that I have come across in most of the cases in my 30 years of career in immigration industry. But before I speak about it, let me give you a quick background of the process applicants follow these days in order to get selected for permanent residence. So you might know that qualified applicants create their online profiles and they are then invited to apply for permanent residence. When I started my career in 1991 in immigration industry, we used to submit paper applications and then the Canadian government used to make a decision. The decision used to be a yes or a no. Most of our cases used to succeed because we made sure that applicants that we represent are meeting the selection criteria. And the likelihood of their success used to be, of course, very high. There used to be the pass mark of 70, which was changed to 67. And if you had 67 points, it was likely that you were to get selected. But these days, of course, you need to first create your profile, an online profile, and then you are invited to apply for permanent residence. Sometimes the applicants are selected directly under one of the federal program if the ranking score is sufficient enough to allow for a direct selection, and sometimes they are nominated by the provincial governments by way of which they get additional 600 points. Either way, one has to submit an application for permanent residence in Canada once they are invited to apply. So it's an invitation-based system we are dealing with. But our today's discussion is about those applicants who have been invited to apply. They submit their application for permanent residence, but then their application are refused for one reason or the other. While there can be several reasons for such refusal, such as medical inadmissibility, criminal or background checks failures, misrepresentation, false or misleading information provided to the immigration department, and these were discovered during the investigation. But what if there are no such issues in a file? Can a file be refused even if everything is in order? Can an applicant still be refused if they provided everything? And I've seen many refusals when these refused clients contact us to reapply. I've seen that there is a common ground, a common reason in most of the cases. And the number one reason that I've come across was the failure to provide correct, accurate, and sufficient supporting documents to substantiate the claim that the applicant indeed has the required work experience. It is basically, there are basically 2-3 reasons surrounding that. First of all, you need to, of course, select a primary occupation in which you need to have at least 1 year of work experience. In old times, we used to have an occupation list, which was removed in 2015 when the express entry system, file management system was introduced. Now, we don't have an occupation list, save for the fact that you need to have at least 1 year of work experience in an occupation that falls under NOC system O, A, or B. NOC is a National Occupation Classification System of occupations in Canada that is used widely in the industry by the employers and, of course, the immigration officers as well. And when we used to have an occupation list in past, it was rather easy to select an occupation and then provide documentation substantiating the work experience claim. But now, since there is no occupation list, the burden is on the applicant to choose correct occupation code, and then provide documentation. What I've seen is, in some cases, that because there is a wide choice of occupations available, and because some of the occupations they overlap each other, the applicant end up selecting incorrect NOC. And in some cases, even when they select correct NOC, they fail to provide the correct documentation. The correct documentation, of course, include the work reference letter from the employer, and that has a certain format. I've seen that people provide work experience documents such as work experience letter, but that letter is so simple and so short that it just says that Mr. So-and-so has been working with us or has worked with us in this capacity, and that's all. What the visa officer is looking for is a letter or work-related documents that show your job duties, because based on that job duties, they are going to compare it with the job duties mentioned in the National Occupation Classification, and then conclude whether your claim in work experience is correct or not, whether you chose the right occupation or not. If the letter is lacking those job duties, or if the letter has job duties that basically don't match with the correct occupation but does match with some other occupation, your application stand the risk of refusal. It is very, very important to note that even if you select correct occupation, even if you provide correct job duties, the reference letter might still be found inadequate. For example, there could be a lacking of mentioning of the working hours or the remuneration that were paid to you. So all these components should be part of the work experience letter. Excuse me. And you should be able to provide documentation. There are supplementary documentation, of course, are required. For example, if you had salary slips, if you could provide the evidence of your salary being deposited into your bank account, or tax documentation, these all secondary documentation are always helpful. But the main reason I've seen is the lacking of the job duties or incorrect job duties mentioned in the letter. Now, there is one more reason I've seen happening frequently, and that is related to incorrectly calculating your work experience. Now, the definition of work experience is that you will be considered having at least 1 year of paid and continuous work experience in order to be assigned points in work experience. And the points are assigned in 1 year batches. For example, if you had 2 years work experience, but there was a gap of 2 months in between, for the purpose of applying for a job, you might say that I do have work experience, but for the purpose of immigration, that would not cut the deal for 2 years because there was a gap. So the continuity is important. Sometimes I've seen people claim points for 2 years or 3 years, but there were gaps. And in fact, from the immigration point of view, they had zero experience. And it's really astounding for a lot of people when they receive a refusal, when the officer says you don't seem to have sufficient work experience. Because in one of the cases that I came across, the person had 11 months experience working for one employer, then he left the job, waited for a month, then joined another employer, worked for 11 more months, left the job, and then started working for another employer and worked for 11 more months. It appears to have 3 years experience, right? But from the point of view of immigration work experience calculation, the person appeared to have zero work experience, because every time he worked, he didn't complete 1 year. So that is very, very important to note, that you calculate your points accordingly, and your total ranking points should be calculated according to what you have in terms of work experience and whether there was continuity or not. I've also seen that a lot of people consider internships as work experience. Internship, if these are part of your degree program, like if you have to do internship in order to get the degree, it cannot be considered. But yes, trainings can be considered toward work experience if they are paid, and they are continuous, and if they are meeting the minimum number of hours per month or per week. So it is also important to see whether you are claiming points for the correct work experience or not. So I would say that the crux of the matter, or the bottom line in any skilled worker application, it all boils down to the calculation of correct work experience, identification of correct NOC, and providing sufficient documentation to substantiate your work experience and claim your work experience correctly by providing correct job description. So, with that note, I hope that the tips provided today would help you guys in making sure that you don't make a mistake. Such mistakes is a small mistake on the face of it, but it can actually ruin the whole application. And the problem is that if you are refused an application, you always have the opportunity to recreate or express entry profile and go back in the pool. But for some people, that could be the end of the story, because in some cases you're losing points in the age factor and your ranking score is decreasing. So why not to take opportunity and make sure that if you receive an invitation to apply, you don't make silly mistakes, small mistakes, don't do any oversights, and make sure that you submit everything all together. With that, I would like to invite our Asia region director, Khwaja Naman, to this podcast. And let's see if he has anything to add to it. And we'll discuss a few points with him as well. And finally, we'll take your questions as well, one by one. Okay? Okay. Welcome, Khwaja Saab. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, Amir Saab. It's been pleasure always to talk about certain things, and obviously the topic that you have chosen is really, really very important these days. And people here especially in the region of Asia, there are people we came across. They have done lots of mistakes, and these silly mistakes obviously ruin their application, and ultimately they end up with losing their goal and home country like Canada. So obviously there are certain questions that people have there in their mind, obviously with regards to their refusals. And obviously, I also made my own list to ask you on behalf of my listeners or on behalf of your listeners, so that they also clarify on some of the points. If you want, I can just start up my questions, and then we can obviously add few more
Yeah,
uh,
I think
questions.
that would be wonderful. If you have any questions that you wish to ask on behalf of the clients from your region, I'll be happy to respond.
Perfect, perfect. So I'll start with one first question, that what applicant should do when he got the visitor visa or any permanent residence visa refused, and what first step that you believe that the candidate should do to initiate or act upon.
Yeah, so when an application is refused, the applicant has the opportunity to either challenge that decision in the Federal Court of Canada or reapply. Now, challenging a decision in the court needs to be taken into account seriously, because if the refusal was justified, a federal court judge deciding against you would mean that you cannot then submit an application, and there would be a sort of a certification on the part of the judge that the visa officer made the right decision. What you need to see is whether the concerns raised by the visa officer can be disabused by way of submitting a new application. But if there is a clear mistake, error on the part of the visa officer, error in fact or law or both, these can be, first of all, addressed by way of an argument letter. We usually write to the visa officer or their supervisor, the program manager. Uh, but if the matter is not resolved, and if we are convinced that it is a clear mistake or error on the part of the officer, then that decision can be challenged at the federal court. But if there doesn't seem to be any such reason, and if the applicant seemed to have made a mistake, a clear mistake, or the lacking was on the part of the applicant, it is advisable to overcome those shortcomings and then reapply with a stronger case, and all the mistakes or errors or shortcomings be addressed in the new application.
Okay, let's assume if the candidate does not do any such mistake on his part, and he believes that the mistake is on the part of the maybe on the part of the CIC, or maybe on the officer's level, then what do you think? Is there any time frame or timeline in between where they can challenge into the federal court, or they may write for some review or re-review or something like that?
Yeah, there are, of course, time limitation because they can't keep it open forever. You have time limitation whereby you need to approach the court. The court matter is not that straightforward. The judge has to first ensure that the case should go for a full hearing. For that matter, there is a application filed called leave application, first of all. If the judge determines that the application does stand a merit, then only it is allowed for a full hearing. But having said that, even if the case is allowed for a full hearing, it doesn't mean that it's going to go through. There will be arguments made from both sides, from the Crown, from the applicant's counsel, and then only it will be decided whether the decision was correct or not. In most cases, reapplying is the option, because even if you do seem to have good chances of approval at the appeal level, the legal costs are so high. At the end of the day, the applicant thinks that maybe I'm better off reapplying at a lower fee. Otherwise, challenging a skilled worker application, the legal cost falls in the vicinity of $8,000 to $10,000, depending on the counsel that you have chosen to represent your application at federal court. So yeah, in some cases it might be useful, but in most cases people end up either reapplying or abandoning the idea if the refusal was justified. That is why it is very important to make sure that you know if you're qualifying or not, you're meeting the criteria from all point of view. Your experience is accurate. There are no gaps. You have chosen the right national occupation classification, so that you don't end up in a refused basket.
And what happened to the fees that the candidates usually pay? Are they refundable, or what happens if they get refused? The people wanted to know about that as well, because they are actually investing a lot of money, and ultimately, if they get refused, what happened to those amounts?
Okay, so once the applicant submits the application after the invitation to apply, and if their application is found incomplete, the application are returned or closed. They are not refused as such. They are closed because of lacking of required documentation. Sometimes if we see that people submit the application, but their applications are not complete. So if the application doesn't pass the paper screening stage, all the fee is refunded. But if the application is put in the processing, if the application was found complete, but if it is refused at the end of the day because of, say, a lacking of job duties in an experience letter, then if the application is refused at that stage, when the application was already in the process, the processing fee is not refundable.
All right. So, is there any centered in between, like people know okay, that's been into processing, or is there something like that, or we can figure it out?
Okay, no, I didn't understand the question. Can you come again?
I mean to ask is if there is anything in between during that timeline that people know okay, the stage is actually reached to the processing of the application, or the stage is being passed through, or it's in the initial phase. Is there any timeline related to it where people can assume that it's the initial phase or it's been gone into the processing?
Yeah,
So
so when you submit your application, you can expect that the processing can start anytime, right?
yeah,
Paper screening can be very quick, and then the application can be put in the processing queue very quickly. IRCC makes decision 6 months in 6 months time, so it is very important to understand that when you submit your application for permanent residence, you might not have sufficient time to correct the mistakes you make. By the time you get back realizing that you have made a mistake and you approach IRCC, you might have a decision coming in. So, and you might end up losing your money as well if the
yeah.
decision is coming at a processing stage.
Right. Another thing which I'd like you to highlight what candidates should on what kind of documents that you believe that applicants should keep track before they submit their permanent residence application, even in like the express entry through express entry, or which you believe that may lead to refusal if they don't follow that.
Yeah, so for express entry, whenever you are invited to apply, when you're creating the express entry profile, you don't really need a lot of documentation, right? With the
Yeah.
help of your IELTS test and your educational credential assessment, you can certainly make your profile. But once you receive your invitation to apply, especially when you already know that you have sufficient ranking points, it might be a good idea to start arranging documents upfront. Documents such as police certificates from the regions or places you have resided since the age of 18 need to be arranged, covering the period from the time you turn 18 until now. Uh, you need to also see whether the documents you're providing are valid. You have work experience with the current dates, at least for the current job, because if you happen to get your experience letter from your current employer, say a year ago, it would not be considered as current. You need to make sure about that. You also need to make sure that any document you submit is translated into English language. There has to be an English language translation or French language translation, along with the original document. Say if the document was in any other language, you also need to attach that particular document as well. So all these documents need to be arranged, and the spade work can be done, especially the work experience letter, because if you work with more than one employer, sometimes it takes time to get hold of the employer and get detailed employment reference from them. So it might be a good idea to start working on those lines. When clients retain our services, we actually give them a list of documents upfront, even though we are just creating their express entry profile, but it gives them an idea as to what documents they would require at the end of the day.
Right. Just wanted to highlight. I mean, I want you to highlight the causes of refusal on the medical ground, because I also came across with lots of people who have been asking that I have an artificial leg being implanted and what's gonna be happen in my medical, whether I got a refusal. So I want you to highlight on those for those people who actually wanted to know about their medical ground. If they have some medical condition, what are the basics involved into it?
Yeah, so if someone who has an ongoing medical condition that would not require additional social or medical assistance in Canada, most of these people would pass medical checks. But if the situation is such that, or the medical condition is such that it might appear to be deteriorate in future, or it might cause extra burden on the Canadian health system. We understand that medical is free in Canada. up to a certain level. Uh, so the visa officer is going to make sure that your situation is not such that it would cause unnecessary extra burden on the Canadian health system. And if these, the chronic diseases or the usual diabetes that is in control should not have any problems. Someone who is disabled but is able to perform his work and duties normally and doesn't require additional social or medical assistance should also pass the test. But it's always a good idea if you have a medical condition and you are concerned about it. It's a good idea to contact someone. Like we do it regularly. We do get a medical opinion upfront, so that at the end of the day, when you pass everything, when you invest a lot of money, and at the end of the day, if you fail medical examination, it would be wastage of a lot of resources and money and time. So it might be a good idea to get an opinion upfront.
So, is someone having a medical condition or something like that, and he is very skillful and financially stable? Do you think is there any leverage or on the part of the IRCC or something where he can go and still pass the medical, or you can, I mean, it may pass that medical requirement or something like that?
Yeah, so if someone who is found to be ineligible on medical grounds, there was a court decision where the visa officers are now required to undertake their due diligence, and they are required to provide procedural fairness response from the applicant. If the applicant is in a position to provide evidence that he or any of his family members will be taken care of by way of the financial suitability they have, money they have, and they would not put extra burden on the Canadian health system, that applicant could still be approved.
All right. I guess it's pretty clear. I mean, just wanted to drag your attention towards one of the another aspect. Usually, people came to us asking that I have a history of imprisonment or detainment or something. So, how you believe the chances of the candidates are of such type?
Yeah, so medical, in addition to medical, there is the criminal inadmissibility as well, which is needed to be taken into account. If someone has an issue in past with the law enforcement authorities, we need to see as to what kind of matter it was in which they were involved. And basically, we have to look at the equivalence in Canadian criminal code. If the situation is such that it falls under the criminality or serious criminality, the applicant might be inadmissible on criminal grounds, and they might be able to reapply after meeting certain conditions only, where they prove that they have rehabilitated themselves. And it's a separate procedure that one needs to follow. But yes, you raise a very good point that if someone has a problem in terms of criminality, if they were charged in past, some people contact us that they were charged for driving under influence or any other, even petty crimes, for example. But they don't reveal it until such time that the Canadian authorities find out on their own, and the application then gets a refusal. So, yeah, it is very important to figure out right upfront whether to address those concerns upfront, or sometimes the situation is such that the crime might not be considered a crime in Canada, right? The
Right.
person might have been put into jail even for something that is not considered as a criminal, or if someone got away in their home country for something that was not considered a crime in their home country, but it is considered a crime in Canada, the application can still be refused. So it is very important to evaluate all these things before setting your foot into the immigration application.
All right. So I guess I believe I mean these are all the things. These all things are very very important in that perspective. I mean, people should know if they have a history of such thing. They should be declaring it very clearly in their application. I hope you agree to that. I mean, people usually believe that think of hiding it, but this is not something that they can hide off. They should be clearly identifying. Otherwise, it may lead to misrepresentation. What do you say on
It's
that?
very important to come clean and be straightforward when it comes to dealing with Canadian immigration authorities. We encourage that as well. And we have a lot of comments coming in. We can
Oh yeah,
start taking those questions. I'll
yeah.
display each one of them one by one, and I'll be able to perhaps answer those. Okay, so who do we have today with us? I believe we have Babar Wasim, Rais Khan, Sidra, Farooq, Nizam. We have Jarar. Thank you everyone for joining. Shahid Javed, Muhammad Ali, Faisal Sayed, Kashif, M. Ali. Okay, so I'll take each one of those one by one. So let's see what do we have. Just to let you guys know that we might not be able to give assessments right now. For that, you can always complete our assessment form available on our website, and we can make an assessment in 2 days' time. Here's this question coming in from Farooq
Yeah.
Nizam Arain. I've just turned 39, single, 18 years of age, 18 years of education from IQS, CLB 8, IELTS General, NOC 2171, rejection in SINP, and fed up of waiting for SINP ITA. Can I pursue study visa SDS for the aim of CEC? And study visa points, what are the chances for accepting during these COVID situation? Okay, Farooq, yeah, I believe you are a very informed client. You have done, you've tried on your own. And if you are thinking about applying for student visa, we might be able to assist you in securing admission in a Canadian institute. And we would also be able to assist you in securing admission in and submitting your study permit application. Sorry, I just kept on repeating myself. So submitting application for study permit as well as your authorized representative. For that, if you are based in Pakistan, you can get in touch with Khwaja Numan Ahmed. I'll just bring him in once again. Khwaja Sahab, would you be able to take care of Farooq Nizam?
For sure, for sure, for sure.
Okay, great. Okay, let's take another question here. Okay, so there is this question from Muhammad Osman Aslam. Hi, Mr. Amir. I hope you're doing great. I'm doing very good. I hope you're doing great too. I want to know that earlier study visa refusal for Spain and Italy could affect my FSW PR process. I don't think so. If the refusal was based on the simple fact that the authorities in Spain and Italy didn't consider you as a genuine student. If there was a refusal based on something that falls under something like that is criminal in nature or misrepresentation, false misleading information, that could in fact have an impact on any application, not even Canada, anywhere. So we can provide you an opinion on that if that is the case. Otherwise, if that's not the case, if that was a usual refusal from those two countries, I don't think there is any thing that you need to be concerned about. Yeah. So let me have an opinion of Khwaja Numan on that as well.
Yeah, exactly. You are right. I also believe the same thing. If he has not misrepresented or something like that, then I believe it will not impact as such on his PR process.
Okay.
However,
Yeah.
you can always consult us in detail with the details of the things, and obviously we can guide you further into this.
Perfect. Okay. So let's take another question from Jarar Shah saying, I need to contact you directly on phone, how it makes possible. Okay, so you can, if you're interested in migrating to Canada, it might be a good idea to look at your eligibility as a first step. You can email us your CV or complete our assessment form on our website. We will determine your eligibility and see whether you're qualifying or not. If you are qualifying, we'll arrange a consultation and we'll ask you to get in touch with our team. Okay, let's take another question. So my qualification, MSc Agriculture, 15 years experience with my salary on cash. My age is 39, 6.5 overall. Okay, so that is a matter that could be addressed by way of a one-on-one consultation, either with Khwaja Naman or myself. You can do that. But before you do that, you need to see whether you are meeting the requirement or not. I see that you're losing a lot of points in the age factor, and your IELTS score is also on the lower side. So maybe you have to rely on a provincial nomination. So first, you need to make sure that you're meeting that requirement or not. Otherwise, I think salary on cash is, of course, a concern, but that can be addressed. Um, but we need to see what sort of other documentation you have with you. So we'll do that once you complete our assessment form, and we'll let you know. Okay. Another question coming from Muhammad Ali. I did a diploma, 4 years in mechanical, and CLB is 7 and 5 years experience. Should I apply for skilled worker visa? So I'll let Khwaja Naman to address this.
Yeah, I mean, if you have done a diploma of 4 years in mechanical, we need to obviously evaluate. And with this IELTS band scores, I believe you have stated 7 CLB and 5 years of experience. I think I better suggest you to have your evaluation by filling that assessment form. But it appears that you might need to add one more qualification to increase your chances more, and also might need to revise IELTS to make it a stronger application into the skilled worker class.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, let's take another one. Okay, so Mr. Khan is saying his wife is 35 years of age. Her IELTS is 6, experience 8 years, and professional MBBS doctor. Yeah, so IELTS could be one of the reason why she might not be able to get sufficient ranking score. So she'll have to rely on PNP programs. So you can let her have her complete our assessment form. We can let you know whether she is going to meet the requirements in one of the PNPs or not. We can do that. Faisal Sayed is saying he's a safety professional, and what would be his chances. So Faisal, we would like to know more details about you, such as age and educational qualification and your language skills. I would recommend the same thing. Our website is www.amirismail.com. It has our website. It has our assessment form available. You can complete that assessment form, and we'll let you know as to where do you stand in terms of points, and if you do meet the requirement under the federal skilled worker program or a provincial program. Okay, let's take another question from Kashif Ali. He says he has done his graduation BE electronics, but doing job in HR professional since 4 years. Do I pass the eligibility criteria for immigration? So Kashif, this is a classic example of a mismatch in education and work experience. And we have had a number of cases where we were successful, where there was a clear mismatch in education and work experience. There are certain occupations, of course, that require you to have certain kind of degrees. For example, if you are claiming points as work experience points as an engineer, you're expected to have a BE degree. If you're claiming points as a doctor, you are expected to have an MBBS degree. But if you have a BE electronics, but you have been working in an unregulated occupation, such as HR, should not be a problem, but you need to be careful when documenting your work experience. And also the fact that you need to substantiate, convince the visa officer as to why do you think that despite not having a degree in HR, you are still capable of pursuing your career as an HR professional in Canada. When we are representing the clients, we do that by way of our legal submission letter, and we address that issue right up front so that it doesn't cause any problems down the road. So I hope that's helpful, and feel free to get in touch with our team whenever you like, or complete our assessment form. We'll be happy to assist you. Okay, and another one: would having different NOC type reduce the CIS points? For example, having 2 years of NOC A experience and 1 year experience B. Okay, yeah, it's a very good question. I really like that. I, in fact, wanted to address that, but it just slipped off my mind. Yes, you can have experience in 2 NOCs. If you have experience, 2 years experience in one NOC and 1 year experience in the other NOC, you have actually 3 years of experience. As long as you have at least 1 year in the primary occupation, that meets the requirement. But then the rest of the NOCs would also be counted. So it is a very good question. I think Nomansa would agree with me.
Exactly, I agree with you because a lot of people have the similar kind of question in their mind. And let me just add one more thing. If you have a relevant experience relevant 1 year of experience in the field which you are applying, or in the NOC which you are applying, it's good enough. And the rest of the NOC's experience that you have, that is equally acceptable, and we can and it is equally acceptable by the IRCC and accumulated to the experience which you are claiming, and ultimately it will be a successful application. So point is, you should be having 1 year of full-time experience in one of the NOC which you are making it as a primary occupation.
Yeah, that's great. Let's take another one from Muhammad Ali. Says, I did a diploma 4 years and have 5 years experience and CLB7. I think we did answer Muhammad Ali before. So I'll just move on to another question. Okay, so this is, I think we addressed Waqar, the same question, 1.8 years experience, one job, or 7 or 8 months of. Okay, another very, very good question coming from the same person, Waqar. What if someone has 1.8 years of experience in one job and 7 or 8 months in another? How many years of experience would count? It would be 1 year, because he didn't complete 2 years in the first occupation. And the second occupation, where he has 7 or 8 months, is still not 1 year. So it is basically 1 year experience. And that's where a lot of people make mistakes. What they do is they claim 3 years work experience, right? 1.8 plus 7 or 8 months. They would consider uh, them having 2 years or more than 2 years experience, which is not the case from the immigration point of view. Thank you very much for asking that excellent question. Okay, now we have another one. Okay, I think we took a question from Usman Aslam before. Visa is not sure. Visa office is not sure that he will return back. So also, funds are not enough to survive. Yeah, so these are the common reasons of refusal. So FSW application of yours should not be impacted. Isma Zulfikar is asking, do spouse need to have IELTS and degree assessment in case of PNP immigration? Not necessarily. If you are in the pool without the IELTS and degree assessment of your spouse, and you're selected by PNP being the main applicant, it might not be required unless it has an impact on your points. I'd add Khaja Numan to reflect more on this, because that is his area of expertise. Khaja Sahab?
Yeah, I would say कि if a spouse educational assessment and IELTS will be added, this will give a boost in terms of points. Anyhow, whatever the point it is, but it will definitely give a boost in the points. And if we are into the worldwide competition, yes, this will give a better perspective. And it is always advisable and suggestible that it should be added. However, there are some PNP programs which does not require a spouse ECA and a spouse IELTS. So we need to evaluate your profile in detail so that we can guide you specifically about it.
Sure. And I would like to make a remark here as well, that if you're in the pool of applicants and you're expecting a selection by province, the provinces also have very limited quotas. And when provinces have limited quotas, you can very well understand that the competition is tough. So if you have better CRS, sometimes provinces, of course, if they have to make a decision between you and the other applicant, and that other applicant has more CRS than you, that applicant might stand better chances of being selected by the province, given the fact that all the other aspects are same. So it's always a good idea to have a spouse complete IELTS and have their degrees assessed as well. I would highly recommend doing that. There is no harm in doing so, and it in fact improves your chances. Okay, so let's take another one. It is from Dura Volta, saying he has done BE, Electronics Engineering, working as a computer operator in one of the government sector for past 1 year. Is he eligible? So, okay, first of all, we need to see which NOC that computer operator occupation would fall in. Um, for the occupation to be considered for work experience, they need to fall under NOC-O, which are management occupations, then NOC A and B. NOC A are those occupations that require you to have at least a degree in order for you to be able to perform in those occupations, and NOC B are the occupations that require you to have a diploma at least. If computer operator occupation is falling under NOC B, and you do appear to meet then the requirement of work experience, the minimum work experience. BE Electronics Engineering is actually a very good degree, but if you have work experience that assuming falls under at least NOC B, you should be able to enter the express entry pool, provided you meet other minimum requirements as well. For example, you need to have at least 67 points as well to enter the pool. You also need to have at least 6 bands in each component of IELTS. So regardless of you meeting other factors, you need to pay attention to each and every minimum requirement to see whether you enter the pool. Once you enter the pool, I'm assuming that with 1 year experience, your CRS would be low in terms of, or in comparison to what the Canadian government is looking for skilled worker program. The ranking score is hovering around 450 to 470 these days. So I'm assuming that this would not be the case in your matter. You will have to rely on a provincial nomination. I would highly recommend that you complete our assessment form for us to see whether you meet the requirements. Okay, so let's move on to a question from Naveed Ahmed Baloch. Which provinces there are chances of PNP, or the chances of PNP are high for IT background people? IT professionals, of course, are required, are in demand all over Canada. Most of the provinces prefer them. In fact, some of the provinces have specialized tech draws, such as Ontario and British Columbia. So the chances are good, but of course, there are other factors that are needed to be taken into account as well, such as your age, education, work experience, language skills, and the points you accumulate, the bottom line. I would add Khwaja Naman for his quick comments on the prospects of IT professionals in PNP program as well. So let's take his take on it as well.
Yeah, I just like to add one more province. I hope you have already mentioned the provinces looking for ITech, IT persons. But I'd like to add Saskatchewan here as well. They're also looking for IT professions. So I think we can evaluate this profile in detail once we have the details. So then we can evaluate and then we can guide him.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so let's take another question. I think we answered Isma before, but she's provided further details. So yeah, thank you very much for providing the details. I think what would be appropriate would be for you to provide us these details to our team, the assessment team. They specialize in making accurate assessment. You can complete our form. We understand you have done 6.5 in IELTS. Your education is MBA, IQS has been done. You have 5 years experience as well. And your husband also is an MBA degree holder. So very good profile. It's just that perhaps you might be losing some points in the language factor and you'll have to rely on the PNP program. Okay, so a few more questions coming in. We have a few more minutes to attend to those. So be with us. If your question has not been answered as yet, we'll get to it shortly. Ikra Yusuf is asking, she has done her Form D in 2018 and has 1.5 years of experience in her field. Husband has done MBA, has worked in construction company in past and now serving intelligence from last 5 years, and they have 1-year-old son. Her husband is 32 and she is 25. Now we are preparing for IELTS and we want to migrate to Australia or Canada. What will be your opinion? Yeah, we can provide an opinion. Please complete our assessment form. Seems to be a very good case. And you have a professional degree. Husband also has an MBA and you both are young. In fact, you are not losing any points in the age factor, so it appears to be a very good case. We can make a determination based on your responses in our assessment form. Okay, so there is a comment from Osama. He has 3 years of experience. He has arranged employment letter. He has arranged employment letter, reference letter, pay slips, bank statement, but he still fears that IRCC might call HR due to poor English communication. HR may not be able to handle it properly. Will I get a chance to prove, or or how can I reduce the risk here? So, okay, so when we are representing your application, we make sure that you provide all the documentation, and you have mentioned most of the documents that would be required to satisfy a visa officer. But if they do call, they would require a positive response from your employer, and it could be they can contact by phone, or they can write a letter, or they can email your employer, and the answer should be a yes about your employment, and whatever you have indicated in whatever your employer or immediate supervisor has indicated in the reference letter you've provided. So visa officers, of course, they want to curb the fraud happening in this area, especially the work experience letters, and they do make inquiries on regular basis. Your best bet should be to address all the concerns right up front, and if there is an inquiry made, you should make sure that your employer attend to it and confirm that you do indeed work there. And add Kajunaman's response on this as well, please.
Yeah, I think HR would be able to handle it in a way. I mean, you can have an experience letter supported by your reference letters, supported by your colleagues and everything. So that will help for sure to satisfy the officer, even if they approach. Still, you need to coordinate with your HR department to make sure they can verify it. If you have generally worked there, for sure, there should not be any problem whatsoever.
And trust me, the call can be made in Urdu language as well. So
Yeah, true, true.
yeah,
That's right.
because we understand that IRCC has very sophisticated system of verifying documentation. We understand that they have ways and means to verify, approach employers, because they have had a lot of troubles in past where people provided fake documents and misrepresented basically, and they got away. But eventually, IRCC has managed to have good handle on such frauds, and they do make calls even in local language. So if someone doesn't understand English language when IRCC calls and they're not satisfied, rest assured that they are going to call in their local language too. So, but make sure that you have everything in order and don't submit anything that you can't prove. Okay, so I have another question from Ammar Hassan. MBBS doctor online application and skilled worker immigration declared ineligible. What can be the reason? Ammar, we need to look into it, right? We can't say what could be the reason. There could be several reasons. Unable to comment, unfortunately, unless we have full information from your side. I would recommend that you book a one-to-one consultation. There's a link for one-to-one consultation as well for non-clients who want us to set aside time for them and discuss their particular matter with them in detail. And we can do that for you as well. We'll be happy to do it. And if you, after the consultation, want us to represent your application, that would be such a pleasure as well. Okay. Ahmed Bilal is 39, orthodontist, 9 years experience, IELTS is CLB 8. A good case. The only concern is your age factor. Perhaps you're losing uh, a lot of points in age factor, and you might be interested in exploring the PNP options. So get in touch with us and we'll explore PNP options for you. Complete our assessment form, and we'll make an assessment, let you know. Okay. Yeah, and you did ask the follow-up question as well, any chance for PNP or FSW, and I responded. Okay, so Rizwan Khan is saying he's an electronics engineer, and he is 29. He has 3 years experience, as office assistant, which lies in NOC C category. Moreover, I have done masters in power systems. I have CLB 8 in IELTS. Okay, so as I indicated, if you have NOC C, your experience will not be eligible. You need to gain experience in NOC B at least to be considered. And I believe Khwaja will agree to that.
Exactly. I'll agree to that. I'll agree to that for sure.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so let's take another one from Rashid Mir. Okay, so he says, I want to consult with the AIA. Do you operate in Islamabad? Any discount this time? Okay, I'm not too sure about the discount, but yes, we do operate directly from Toronto with all our Islamabad-based clients since 1991. We do maintain an office in Karachi, though, for the coordination purposes, and Khwaja Naman heads that operations. So you can feel free to get in touch with us directly in Toronto or our Karachi office, whichever way you like. But the first step is always to complete our assessment form for a free assessment, as to know whether you qualify or not and where do you stand in terms of points. And once that is decided, you can decide to consult with us directly or through our Karachi office. Hope that answers the question. Okay. Huma Salim is saying she has 15 years of experience in Dubai. She's a graduate in psychology. Can she apply for express entry? So, Huma, as I indicated earlier as well, the criteria is based on your age, your education, your educational qualification, your work experience, your language skills. Once we have that information by way of our assessment form, we will be able to advise you whether it would be appropriate for you to consider immigrating to Canada and what options are available for you. So please feel free to do that on our website, www.amirismail.com, and we'll get back to you. Rashid Mir has provided further information. He's got Bachelor of Communication Design, 4 years graphic and advertising, 20 years experience, age 44. Yeah, Rashid, there seems to be a weak case because you're losing a lot of points in the age factor. We'll see whether you are meeting the 67 points criteria in order for you to be able to enter the express entry pool. And if you do enter the express entry pool, we'll see whether we could help you in one of the provincial programs. Tahseen Salim is saying the applicant is MS MPhil in special education, age 45, IELTS 6, each overall 6.5. What do you suggest, immigration or go for PhD specialization in special education? So there are a lot of people, a lot of mature students who opt for education in Canada because that also paves way for permanent residence at the end of the day if you want to stay permanently in Canada. And they qualify under Canada Experience class. They also get more points in education factor because a Canadian degree you get. People who are age 45 or above, and if they have IELTS score, which is around 6 or 6.5, it is usually difficult for them to meet the criteria. Sometimes it's even difficult for them to enter the express entry pool. So we can evaluate, we can let you know, and we can perhaps arrange a one-on-one consultation because it's a very important decision for you to understand. And we'll let you know which should be the best course of action for you. Leila is saying, I want immigration. Yes, Leila, we'll be happy to assist you. Please provide further details by way of our assessment form, and we'll evaluate your chances and let you know. Okay. Few more questions, some last questions coming in before we conclude. Sidra is saying she has an MBA HR degree. So Sidra, provide us further information. We'll let you know whether you qualify or not. Okay. Sunita is saying she has 4 years of experience in ECD. If she gets employment letter from Toronto Nursery, would I need to go through LMIA process? So if you are applying for a federal skilled worker program, in order for you to claim points in experience factor for arranged employment, you need to have LMIA. But if you're applying through a provincial program, you might not need it. Khwaja Naman would be able to assist you with that. Yes, Naman sir?
Yeah, that's right. We will be able to assist, but obviously we need to look at her education perspective as well, which is missing in here. So we will evaluate in detail, and then we'll be able to comment further.
Perfect. Okay, so last few questions, three or four, I believe. Let's take those as well before we conclude. And if any one of you have further questions, please feel free to post here. We'll be able to attend those, and if not, then we'll be able to get back to you later. Okay, so one more question, which is which provinces are welcoming financial analysts through PNP nowadays? We have seen financial analysts being selected by Alberta in recent times, and most of the provinces do have financial analysts as their target occupations. So we don't really have an exact answer to that, but it is all the invitation-based system we are in. So your best chance is to go in the express entry pool and approach various uh, provinces in order to increase your chances. Hmm. Okay, so Ahmed Bilal, we answered him before as well, says most provinces require job offer to apply for PNP. Well, those provinces that require you to have a job offer mandatorily, we don't approach them because, in my point of view, personally, it is wastage of time and money to run after those provinces. Those provinces who do not require you to have a job offer, such as Saskatchewan, Alberta, Ontario, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, these provinces do not require you to have a job offer. So maybe focusing on those provinces might be useful. Let's have a take on this from Noman Sab as well.
Yeah, Ahmed, if I'm recalling, I spoke to you in detail on this evening and we had a detailed consultation. You are already on the right track, Ahmed. You have applied already for Saskatchewan for sure. And you're scoring good enough there. But let's hope for the best. Wait and see. Hopefully, you might end up with this selection method.
Yeah, this is
Consider,
what Ahmad is saying. EOI done for Saskatchewan PEI. So yeah,
yeah, exactly.
so
Yeah.
this is what you can do at most, right? In these invitation-based era, you can do your best. You can create your express entry profile. You can approach provinces, and then you can sit back and relax and see what happens. Okay. I think this might be the last question we'll be attending today. Homa Mir is saying, "Can I apply with my spouse who is a graphic designer?" So Homa, we need further information from you. Graphic designer, of course, they could be considered for processing, but we need to see whether you are meeting other requirements as well and what ranking score you are getting. Based on that finding, we can give you a final answer. So I think we have attended to most of the questions. If any one of you have further questions, please feel free to get in touch with our offices. I'll show you the slide for the contact details that you might want to note. I believe we have. Let me see if I have contact information here, and I'll just remove the comment. Okay, so we have the contact information of our Toronto office right on your screen. But let me show you the Karachi office contact information as well, if I can pull that up from my record. Okay, I think you might have here. Okay. Uh, I don't know if I've lost the track, but yeah, just so you can go on our website directly, and you can have access to our information from there. But I think I might have it here. Yeah, happened to find it just in time. So yeah, the contact details are on your screen. Email address is also there, info@amirsmile.com. Phone numbers are mentioned. Make a note of those. One of the numbers is on WhatsApp as well. That is the 647-835-0660. Feel free to get in touch with our team, and we'll be happy to respond. And before we say goodbye to you, Akbar Ali is saying, "Thank you very much, very informative. Thank you, Numan Khaja." Contact number. So we just showed you the number here. on your screen. You can get in touch with Numan Saab, and we'll be happy to be in touch with you guys. Okay. So yeah, so Numan Saab, if you have anything to add to today's session, otherwise we'll say goodbye to our audience.
Okay, so it's been a wonderful session throughout. I've seen the questions been coming in, especially related to the refusal. Although our topic was very much unique in that perspective, I request Amir Saab to highlight one more aspect before we sign off. Usually, people wanted to know what are the roles of a regulated consultant like us, especially in the refused application, so that people should know and they can add some value in their application by signing up with us, and so that we can add some more value into their application, and ultimately try our best to make sure they get their ultimate goal by reaching Canada and have a cup of tea with you.
Yeah, so good question. The clients that we deal in today's day and age, they are very informed and they are well educated. They have access to information, and they understand that if they are deciding to hire a consultant, they are better off dealing with someone who's authorized by the government of Canada. And they also should be wary of the local agents claiming to be the IRCC certified. They use the word agents. So if you are dealing with an agent, you have to be very careful, because agent is someone who represent the licensed consultant. I, for one, do not authorize agents because they are local people, and government of Canada doesn't have any say or control on them, even if they are an agent of ICCRC members. So you have to be very careful. These people are, of course, not Canadians. They have never been to Canada themselves, and they have never gotten their training in Canadian immigration. So if you're dealing with someone who is authorized, make sure that you have checked their credentials, and don't get confused if they are agents, because they are no good to represent your application. And when you're signing your agreement, you need to sign the agreement with the ICCRC member, not with any company. If you're signing an agreement with a company, a private limited company, or a partnership, then it's a very big red flag. You need to sign up with the main consultant, so that your rights are reserved. So with that note, I'll say goodbye to you, and we hope to see you once again next week, same day, hopefully Saturday. All right. Thank you very much for joining us today.